Actually not a bad idea. That might be a video down the road. We get to talk about the Pokemon movies I remember watching as a kid.
Well, looks like I'm finally getting around to doing that video now, aren't I? So like I mentioned in the Digimon movie review I did, Pokemon was one of those anime that me and my sister used to watch a lot growing up. We had the cards, my sister played some of the games, and then after the fourth movie, it was around the time we kind of dropped Pokemon, we fell off the Pokewagon, we were kind of done with the franchise. It was something that we kept up with for a decent amount until eventually we just kind of hit a wall and went, we're done with this, we're moving on to other things. Jump forward to now, I think she actually does still play the games. I think she still has like a binder full of the cards. After watching the Digimon movie, I kind of figured, well, hey, how did the Pokemon movies hold up? And it's taken me this long to finally get around to it, but yeah, we're finally talking about the Pokemon movies, specifically the ones that I remember watching from my childhood. And so after rewatching them, I decided this would be kind of a mini movie marathon. We're going to talk about 4 movies in one. Thankfully though, a lot of these movies are very straightforward. It's not like the Digimon movie where they just Frankensteined a bunch of different shorts together in one movie. These movies, while there is definitely a lot of lore to keep up with, for the most part, the plots of each of these movies is very easy to follow. So I think that definitely helped. And I think that'll make this a pretty easy review to do. Heads up for any diehard Pokemon fans out there. This is coming from the perspective of a guy who used to kind of keep up with Pokemon and then eventually stopped. So this isn't some kind of expert review or anything like that. This is coming from somebody who knows a little bit about the franchise, used to keep up with it a decent amount. But this isn't some kind of like in-depth breakdown filled with extra lore and explanation. This is just a guy decided to watch a bunch of Pokemon movies from his youth and is just kind of talking about them and rambling about them now. So without any further build-up, let's start with the first one. This movie definitely highlights a very special point in time. I remember Red Letter Media brought this up when they reviewed the Garbage Pail Kids movie. This was back when the big final act of being a super popular franchise was getting your own movie. Whenever something was so popular, it had to get the movie and go to the big screen, and that was usually the ending point of something finally making it big. And Pokemon was no exception because, let it be known, in the 90s, Pokemon was a cultural phenomenon. It was everywhere. I mean, you had the games, you had the manga, you had the TV show, you had the trading cards, you had the plushies and the action figures, you had the t-shirts, the hats, you had the soundtracks, you had a Pokemon jet, there was probably Pokemon waffle makers and golf bags, I don't know. There was just anything you could slap Pokemon on, it was out there. So then you get to this movie, and I could just imagine kids and, young adults that were Pokemon fans being like, oh shit, there's gonna be a theatrical Pokemon movie, because the show was pretty popular, along with all the rest of it. So then you get to this movie, and overall, I would say the movie is flawed, but certainly nostalgic. I definitely had a blast watching the movie, but that doesn't stop the fact that there are some pretty goofy things in it. Some kind of experiment that's going on to clone this super legendary Pokemon named Mew. And they end up creating Mewtwo, and he is this super tough, gruff Pokemon who has telekinetic abilities, and he's cloned, and at first he just wants to know like where he came from. It's very Sonic Adventure 2, and in a lot of ways I thought he was kind of like Shadow the Hedgehog.
You were created by humans to obey humans. You could never be our equal.
Humans may have created me, but they will never enslave me.
He's dark, he's brooding, he was created in a lab by humans, eventually he develops a distrust of humans, the laboratory gets destroyed at one point, and it seems like he's just out for vengeance and just wants to kill all humans and make things good for Pokemon. That's essentially what Mewtwo is all about. And I gotta say, Mewtwo's still pretty awesome bad guy, all things considered. The voice is cool, the design is cool, and I like that he's one of the first few villains in the franchise that just doesn't seem to fuck around. I mean, you legitimately think you could die if you cross this dude. So after Mewtwo escapes the laboratory, we then get the picture-perfect scenario for Pokemon. We have our three main characters, Ash, Misty, and Brock, relaxing, and then Team Rocket are plotting to steal Ash's Pikachu. And what they do is, after seeing that they get invited to some kind of big Pokemon trainer event where they're going to have a bunch of different trainers from all around the region.
You have been chosen to join a select group of Pokemon trainers at a special gathering.
They decide to take them there on a boat, disguised as Vikings, and we get just one of the many, many instances of 4Kids dubbing where they tried to put in dumb jokes.
I didn't know Vikings still existed.
They mostly live in Minnesota.
Thanks, 4Kids. Once they get there, the lady that offered them the invitation turns out to be a mind-controlled Nurse Joy, who eventually gets un-mind-controlled. And once all these trainers are there and around, and all these Pokemon are there, Mewtwo reveals himself, and it turns out that these Pokemon were being brought to be cloned, and ultimately what ends up happening is the Pokemon end up fighting their clones.
I will block all the Pokemon's special abilities using my psychic powers. Now we shall see who triumphs. Go!
And, well, we then get this message of how Pokemon shouldn't fight.
Pokemon aren't meant to fight. Not like this.
And the thing is, I get what they're saying, I really do. That, like, because you just see these Pokemon they're not even using their abilities against their clone counterparts. They're just wailing on each other violently. And, I mean, all that was missing was blood in that sequence, holy shit. But it's like, I get it. They're saying that Pokemon are meant to fight by using their abilities, and it's supposed to be the sport of it. It's supposed to be like it is in the show, where they're using their special attacks to defend themselves, when it's 1v1. It's not supposed to be just fisticuffs brutally just beating the hell out of each other. But again, the thing that just kind of undermined the sequence for me was just the melodramatic element of it. Just, Pokemon aren't meant to fight, not like this. Eventually, Mew and Mewtwo end up fighting it out. Ash tries to stop it. He ends up getting caught in the crossfire, and he's turned to stone.
Pikachu.
And the thing that brings Ash back to life is the tears of the Pokemon. All the Pokemon are sad for their fallen hero.
Pikachu.
And as cheesy as it is, I did like the sequence because it shows that Mewtwo was wrong in his assumption that all humans are bad, all humans are just out to hurt Pokemon, and they're greedy and heartless. So the fact that eventually he sees all these Pokemon crying for this human, and their tears is what eventually brings Ash back to life, I did like that. I thought that it worked thematically, and it worked for the story. It's in that instance that Mewtwo realizes that Pokemon do have a deep-seated connection with humans, and that not all humans are heartless and don't care about Pokemon like the humans that originally created him.
The human sacrificed himself to save the Pokémon. I pitted them against each other, but not until they set aside their differences did I see the true power they all shared deep inside.
Cheesy, it's very fucking Care Bears coded, if you will, but I thought that it was a perfectly fine way of ending the movie, and he finally comes to terms with the fact that he's a clone, and he takes all the clone Pokemon off to live somewhere freely, and end the movie.
Mewtwo, where are you going?
Where my heart can learn what yours knows so well. What transpired here, I will always remember.
This movie, it has its flaws, but I would be lying if I didn't bring up that I was kind of nostalgic rewatching this one. I watched it a lot on VHS as a kid, when I was part of that Pokemon phase, so yeah, it's flawed, but I thought it was fine. If you're watching it with nostalgia, and you're willing to accept the more silly things in it, while also acknowledging that there are silly things in it, I thought it was a perfectly fine example of a movie based on a thing brought to the big screen. It's not a perfect movie, and I'm going to be answering this question once we get to the end of the video, but the thing that I kept thinking with all of these movies was, is this a good movie for non-fans? I'll definitely try to answer that question by the end of the video, but for now, let's move on to the second movie, Pokémon the Movie 2000. You remember that trend when every movie that was coming out around that time had to have 2000 in the title? Everyone thought it was really cool. You know, it was the whole Y2K thing. Yeah, that was a thing that lasted like a year and a half maybe. The plot to this movie is that there's something that's throwing off the balance of the world and all the Pokemon are going crazy. And it turns out the reason is because these legendary bird Pokemon are being kidnapped by this evil billionaire playboy guy who I swear is some kind of weird hybrid of Kaiba and Pegasus from Yu-Gi-Oh! Because his like battle station is this flying castle thing.
Moltres, Zapdos, and Articuno. Any one of them would be a priceless addition to my collection.
But anyway, he wants these legendary bird Pokemon as a status symbol. He's kidnapping them so that he puts them in these like electric cages and just has them sit there and look pretty. He doesn't care about them as pets or as companions or like most Pokemon trainers should. He doesn't really care about them as beings. He just looks at them as accessories. And they even say that later in the movie. They have a line from Misty to point that out.
The way you talk, it's like Pokemon are just things to collect, like dolls or stamps.
Just like with the anti-fighting message in the first movie, I could easily imagine people misconstruing the message of this one and saying, oh, they say that you shouldn't capture Pokemon, but the whole point of the show is that you capture these creatures and put them in balls and then train them to fight for their entire lives. And it's like, I get that could totally be misconstrued, but really, I think this guy's tact is just wrong. I mean, if he wanted to capture these Pokemon, obviously it sets off the balance of the world because they're legendary Pokemon, but if he wanted to just capture them in Pokeballs and then just open them up and put them on pedestals and be like, okay, just sit there and look nice, then I think we wouldn't have an issue.
I'm afraid I'm not a trainer, young lady. I am merely a collector.
But clearly this guy is just an evil, rich, billionaire playboy prick. So he doesn't care about these things as creatures. He has to put them in confinements with electricity and stuff like that. He's a bad guy. That's all you need to know. Meanwhile, Ash, Misty, and Tracy, because this was at the point where Tracy was part of the show, they end up on this island that has these people who have this like tribal bird costume thing going on the island.
In your hands rests the world and its fate.
It does?
Don't let it worry you, kid. It's just for the tourists.
Apparently it's a thing to get tourists, but once they find out that Ash has arrived, they say Ash is part of some kind of prophecy, and that goes on to play later in the movie.
The ancient legend foretells your arrival, and only with you can the guardian of the waters vanquish the great titans of fire, ice, and lightning.
According to the prophecy, narrated by some kind of slow king that can talk,
take the treasure and put it there.
You can talk?
But apparently there is some kind of chosen one out there who is supposed to help bring balance to the world and help rescue these legendary bird Pokemon. And lo and behold, it turns out that it was Ash. And they even foreshadow that in the prophecy.
Alone its song will fail, thus the earth shall turn to ash.
Once they get on this island, there's this girl named Melody who kind of has a subplot with Misty because, well, Melody has a thing for Ash, and Ash being Ash doesn't really think too much of it other than, ooh, girl kissed him on the cheek. But Misty gets very jealous, and this starts this whole rivalry between the two of them, and she's constantly going on about how she's not Ash's girlfriend, and she's sick of Melody implying that, and then hinting that maybe she does have feelings for Ash.
What are you coming for? To find Ash. And before you start saying it's because I secretly like him, don't. Because I don't.
Hey, chill out. You sure are sensitive about somebody who's not your boyfriend.
This entire subplot feels like it was intentionally made for people who are into the shipping, I guess. That's really what it feels like. It's just like, shit, we need to give ammunition to the Misty Ash shippers, so just give them a whole subplot. Go. All the while this is going on, we also have Professor Oak and Ash's mom getting into the mix as they're trying to figure out what's going on.
Disrupting
ocean currents, weather patterns, and the entire global climate.
I wonder if this is what's been upsetting all the Pokémon.
In a weird way, it kind of felt like Independence Day, where we're just bouncing around from different subplots and different characters who are trying to figure out what exactly is happening. Except it's not as frustrating as Independence Day, because that just had a million characters to keep track of. This one, at least it's relatively simple and easy to follow. Oh, and of course, we gotta have Team Rocket come back. And I gotta say, this is probably the best instance of Team Rocket in these movies. They actually do get some pretty funny lines here and there. At first, they're of course trying to fuck with the main characters and take Ash's Pikachu, but then eventually they sort of get dragged along for the ride, sort of like the first movie, except I think they're a little bit more proactive in this one. And like I said, I think some of their banter in this movie is actually way funnier than it is in any of the other ones.
When you get involved with the opposite sex, you're only asking for trouble.
Yes, and that's the kind of trouble I stay out of.
Yous two don't need the opposite sex because you got each other.
What does that mean?
We know where all this is going. We know Ash is going to save the day, his friends are going to help him in some way, and all the legendary bird Pokemon are going to go free. And then we're going to end with this big cinematic shot showing the Pokemon flying towards the camera or, you know, traveling together, and it's going to be very pretty because the animation in these movies is really good. With all these Pokemon movies that I watched, I mean, even the ones that were in theaters for a limited release, it definitely shows with the animation. It definitely feels like they put money towards it. I mean, it's going to be a little bit odd when we get to the fourth one because that has some weird animation shit in it. But for the most part, these first two movies, they definitely look cinematic. So did the other ones that I watched, but the first two in particular, the animation in them actually does look very theatrical, and you can tell they put money into making it look good for the big screen. Next up, we got the third Pokemon movie. This one, I think, went to theaters for a limited release, and I think the same happened with the fourth one. I mean, shit, when you get to the fourth one, there's like a totally different studio behind it too, so that definitely played into things. But for this movie, we still got Kids WB. They're the ones that are putting it out. So this one still feels a little bit more in vein with the first two. The plot to this one involves this scientist explorer man who ends up discovering the Unknown, which is a psychic type of Pokemon that gets unleashed, and of course it's evil.
It's the Unknown!
It brings him back as Entei, which is another one of the many mystical Pokemon that ends up getting brought up in these movies. Some kind of legendary Pokemon that's supposed to be a giant dog.
Are you my...
I am Entei.
Papa, it's you!
But he ends up coming back to life, which is good for his little girl, Molly, who sort of becomes the main antagonist, unintentionally so. They basically imply that she gets corrupted by the Unknown because all she wanted was her father to come back, and he does as Entei, and Entei promises to give her whatever she wants. And this is supposed to be the Unknown's influence. They're supposed to be corrupting her so that way the more they use the Unknown, the more power they start to harness over these people. And what they end up doing is they end up walling off their mansion. Once our main characters, now back to Ash, Misty, and Brock, as well as this other girl who they meet along the way, they end up getting into the place. The giant wall that they have barricading this house ends up making news, and so then we end up getting Ash's mom and Oak back into the mix. And what happens is Molly sees them on the news and tells Entei that she wants a new mama.
Papa, I want a mama too.
If that is what you wish.
And it's really funny, when she said mama, I immediately thought of Anya from Spy Family because she always says mama and papa. So Entei uses some kind of like mind control ability over Ash's mom and takes her away, and so that's why our main characters have to try and break into the place. Initially it starts off as a rescue mission to save Ash's mom, and then eventually it becomes a mission to try and get these people out of there and break the control of the Unknown. Also, Team Rocket show up, because of course they do, and maybe it's just me, but I feel like they had the least amount of interesting stuff to do in this movie other than just occasionally pop up to make jokes.
Green fields just as I imagined it. Beautiful fields of flowers that turn into a bizarre crystal wasteland that obliterates the entire... Hey, what's going on?
I will say it is kind of worth it because there's a part where they even lampshade the fact that they have plenty of opportunities to just steal Pikachu and make off scot-free, but they just don't. And then they point out why.
Well...
You see?
It's really very simple.
If anything ever happened to you, we'd be out of show business.
It's like, all right, that's kind of cute. I'll give them that. That was a little funny. One thing I actually really liked about this movie was the fact that we see the others actually engage in some Pokemon battles, and it's not just Ash. It felt like they were actually doing stuff with the other characters, fighting an aged-up Molly who uses her own Pokemon against them, and they have this Pokemon battle, and it's actually pretty cool. Even if this line is a little bit questionable.
A Teddy Ursa, huh? Figures a cute Pokemon trainer'd have a cute Pokemon.
Once they come face to face with Entei, all of their Pokemon are useless against him, so what are they gonna do? Well, in the ultimate bit of fan service, Charizard comes back because there was that whole arc in the show where Charizard went off to train on his own, and then he comes back and he actually helps save them, and the ending fight scene, not gonna lie, pretty fucking awesome. Charizard fights Entei, they end up defeating the Unknown, the giant wall barrier thing ends up getting destroyed, everyone's free, and they even manage to bring back the father in human form, and he's alive, so hooray, happy endings all around. It felt a little smaller scale compared to the other two, especially the second one. I mean, the second one was massive. It felt like the fate of the world was at stake in that one. This one, it feels a little bit more contained. It feels like everything is limited to inside this palace, which has been transformed by the Unknown. And I like that. I like the kind of difference in scale, but it makes up for it with the fan service. And while it's not super egregious, I can definitely see people who are keeping up with the show being like, oh shit, man, oh shit, son, Charizard's back, holy fuck.
Delia Ketchum being abducted by a mysterious creature as her son gave chase.
I did like this one. I probably liked it a little more than the first movie because this one felt a little easier to follow, even if there were some things that kind of bugged me, like, yeah, Team Rocket really had no reason to be in this movie other than occasionally pop up and make jokes. And while some of those jokes were funny, they felt like they had more to do in the first movie. And it's not as grand scale as the second one, but I did think this was a pretty good Pokemon movie overall. And now you get to Pokemon Forever. The one that made me stop caring about Pokemon. And I'll just say right now, I actually didn't hate this. I mean, I didn't hate it back then. I just kind of felt like, all right, that was a movie. That was an hour and a half. And I kind of feel the same way. I mean, there are things in it that I like, but I still think it's the weakest of these 4 Pokemon movies. I noticed Kids WB wasn't part of this one. Instead, it was Miramax, which was really surprising to me. I completely forgot about that part of it. I forgot Miramax eventually got their grubby mitts on the Pokemon franchise. You'd think that Warner Brothers would try everything in their power to hold on to these, but yeah, I guess Miramax eventually got a slice of the pie. So that's just kind of disappointing. So as for what happens in this one, time travel happens. Yeah, time travel's a part of this movie. Kind of like the third act of the Digimon movie. In that movie, time travel just kind of happens. In this movie, time travel just kind of happens. Once again, we got Ash, Misty, and Brock. They're traveling through this town, and they end up taking this boat ride into this village that's in the forest, and we got people, they're kind of like hippies. They live in trees, in tree houses.
Stop right there! Huh? I suppose you kids are heading into the forest to look for Pokémon?
Well, we see this lady, and, well, she's an older woman, but at the beginning of the movie, there's this prologue where we see her when she was younger, and she's talking to this young explorer kid named Sammy, and she tells Sammy to be wary about traveling into parts of these woods because there's this tunnel, and if you go through it, you could potentially travel through time or get lost to time, or however they say it.
They say there's a sound you can hear when the spirit that protects the forest is time traveling. Time traveling? That's one of its special powers. It can go back and forth between the past and the future.
He ends up traveling through the tunnel, and he comes across this different part of the forest where there, again, more legendary Pokemon. We got Celebi, who's this little plant pixie creature. And, well, they show him having fun with the Celebi, and they're having a good time. It's all smiles and rainbows until there are some poachers that show up. And I like the fact that they tried to make the poachers look old-timey. They have the guy wearing, like, suspenders and, like, a white muscle shirt, and he has a flat cap. So they try, and he's riding on, like, one of those, like, old motorcycles. I liked that element of it. That I thought was really thematically appropriate, trying to show this is the past version of this Pokemon world.
I'm a Pokemon hunter, kid. I make good money off a rare Pokemon. First I catch them, then I auction them off to the highest bidder.
But then a giant beam of blue light goes up, and I love the lady's reaction. She turns around, sees that, and goes, "Could that be time travel?"
Could that be time traveling?
Yeah, okay, apparently giant beams of blue light go up into the sky. That means time travel. All right, that's good to know. But then we jump forward and we see this lady. She's talking to our main characters, telling them the legend of what happened. And once they end up traveling through that tunnel, it turns out that Sammy is still there and he's still a kid.
I can't believe it. It's really you. You've come back. Oh, thank goodness.
He comes across our main characters. He befriends Ash. They end up befriending Celebi. We get another legendary Pokemon that has water powers.
You must have come here to help us out.
And then we get to the villain, who's probably the goofiest villain out of everybody here, even more so than Larry back in the second movie.
I'm still a Pokemon hunter. I'm not gonna tell you anything.
We'll see about that.
This guy has the dumbest costume out of all of the Pokemon villains, and that's saying something. And I haven't seen any of the movies after this, so if anybody who's a Pokemon fan knows any Pokemon villains that have goofier outfits than this guy, please let me know, because I would love to see something even goofier than this shit.
The Pokemon I catch with a Dark Ball become evil Pokemon, and their power instantly increases to the highest level.
It's like a Magneto helmet, but it goes over his eyes, and there are these like little eye hole things, and just to highlight the fact that he's a bad guy, they have like little like slants going through to try and simulate like angry eyes. It's also the voice actor Dan Green playing that character again, so okay, he was definitely having fun as that character, but then when they actually say his name, because they eventually say it, apparently his nickname is the Iron Masked Marauder.
The Iron Masked Marauder!
This sounds silly, and it doesn't help that the 4Kids dub forces in a Nacho Libre reference, because Nacho Libre was popular at the time, so you gotta make a mention of it.
I've seen him before.
Yeah, wasn't he in that Mexican wrestling movie?
Oh my god. But it's very apparent that this guy is supposed to be the evil human that's encroaching on nature and trying to steamroll everything, and he wants to kidnap Celebi for his own nefarious purposes.
The sweet little Pokemon you used to know doesn't exist anymore. Celebi, get rid of them all!
Celebi is just doing all this evil stuff and destroying the land and destroying the forest. And then to the point where it eventually starts to form this giant, like, wood golem thing that's walking around, and it's CG. The CG in this movie, because there's a decent number of CG throughout this thing, the CG in this movie, God, it does not hold up well. It looks pretty bad. The wood golem thing ends up kidnapping Jessie from Team Rocket, so it's up to our main characters to try and save her. And the entire time this wood golem thing was on screen, I just couldn't help but think of the Wicker Man. Oh shit, they gotta get her out of there before they burn it so that way they can sacrifice her and get honey. Or whatever that fucking Nick Cage Wicker Man remake was supposed to be about. Eventually Celebi gets injured, and it seems like Celebi is dead. So, oh no, our main characters have to do everything in their power to try and save the poor creature. So they try putting him in the lake to try and rejuvenate him, but the lake is all dirty and polluted from all the stuff that happened. Then they have to repurify the water. And that scene was pretty. That scene was well animated. But then they put him in the water. It's still not coming back.
Celebi, the water's clean again.
So then they try giving him these berry things that he was really into earlier.
See? These are those berries we found in the forest. Here you go.
The berries also aren't working, so what could possibly bring him back? Celebi's back up, and then they throw in one more surprise as Iron Mask Marauder tries to take off with Celebi with like a jetpack thing, but Ash jumps onto him, weighs him down, he ends up collapsing back to the ground.
You tried to destroy our forest, mister, and we don't take kindly to that kind of behavior.
And then the movie ends with a twist, because there's a scene earlier in the movie where they're talking to Professor Oak on the phone, just to establish that Professor Oak is in the movie.
Have you ever seen a Suicune before?
Yes, I sure have, but only one time.
And then jump forward to now. It turns out that, in fact, Sammy, the time-traveling kid who eventually goes back to his time, was actually a young Professor Oak.
It seems like it happened only yesterday.
His past self met Ash, and he remembered Ash enough to where later on in the future, he would remember him and knew that he would give him the Pikachu, so then it would be this like self-fulfilling prophecy. And I could just imagine people who are giant Poke nerds and super into the franchise just geeking out over that and being like, oh my god, that's fucking cool. But yeah, rewatching this one, I'm just thinking like, yeah, I probably liked it more than when I saw it the first time, but as it stands, it's just kind of a movie for me. It's not bad. If anything, it was probably just an example of, you know, you're a kid, you're getting older, you're getting into newer things. It's not even like I hated this movie or anything, but I felt nothing. I mean, I could definitely see people who are Pokemon fans getting into this movie, and like I said, it's not like it's god-awful or anything, but I don't know, compared to the other Pokemon movies, I just, something about this one just didn't do it for me. But do any of these movies work for non-fans? I would say out of all of them, I think the first 2 or 3 definitely work for people who are outside the demographic. I feel like the first one, you really have to be into Pokemon, because that one definitely leans heavy into the super early generation fan service. It's just like, oh man, all the original 100 Pokemon or so, they're on screen. That definitely feels like it was tailor-made for the fans. So it's kind of hard to gauge whether or not people who weren't really into the franchise would be into that. I feel like the second and the third movie definitely have good enough stories to maintain being interested in the plots. You know, the second movie, oh shit, the fate of the world is in danger. That's a very easy thing to get into as a plot device or as a storyline. So I feel like the second one, it has a very epic story. It's very grand scale. It's not just an episode of the show dragged out to an hour and a half. So I feel like people who aren't even really that big of fans or that knowledgeable of the franchise could get into the second movie's plot. And same with the third one, because it's like a smaller scale version of the second movie. It's a little more self-contained, and while there's definitely fan service in the third one, I feel like even if you're not that knowledgeable of Pokemon, you could get into the plot of the third movie fine. Got the story of this little girl who's sad that her father passed away, and she just wants her family again. And Entei, under the corruption of the unknown, can give that to her, but ultimately she has to let go of all that, and she has to resist the temptations of the unknown and what they pretend to offer her. I think that people could get into that. That is an interesting enough story to follow. And as for the fourth one, I don't know. I feel like the fourth one, sort of like the first one, leans a lot more into the fan service. I mean, and I feel like the plot of the fourth one, for non-Pokemon fans, I don't think it would be as interesting to them. I mean, it does a decent job handling its environmentalist message fine. It does better than other movies like, say, A Fern Gully or whatever, even though I used to watch that movie a lot as a kid. Outside of the fan service and some of the world building in the fourth one,
I don't know if a lot of people who are not very interested in the franchise could get into it. As someone who kind of sort of kept up with Pokemon and finally decided to rewatch this one, I was just like, all right, it wasn't as bad as I originally thought it was, but I just got nothing out of it. But anyways, that does it for Blockbusters in May. Look forward to next month where we have 3 more movie reviews coming down the pipeline. Not sure what movies we're going to be looking at yet, but knowing Blockbuster show, some of them are probably going to suck hard. We'll just have to wait and see. But until then, I'm Adam Sykes of the Blockbuster Show, and we will see you guys in the next video.
And so until next time, Team Rocket's fading out again!